Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and today I'm joined by Charlene Wall. Charlene is the head of operations and founder of Manor Properties. So welcome, Charlene. Thank you for coming along today.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I was saying before I hopefully hit the record button at the right place, that Manor Properties is a young company. You're in your third year, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
But you've got sort of 25 years experience across the company in construction and management, surveying, supply chains, and everything else you can think of that works within the project. For you to give the deliverables for the services. How many of those 25 years experience have you got in construction?
So out of the 25 years, I'd say personally, from a project managing kind of perspective, I only probably about 11 years, and that 11 years wasn't actually heading up my own company. It was more so my husband, he was a trader, contractor, so he's always been in that industry, and I was always in management and corporate. But the sweet spot for me was, well, you know what, we're going to use your experience, my managerial, to actually just make residual income, and also to have an kind of an investment, because it scared me, quite frankly, that he wouldn't really have as favourable as a pension that I did. And I was all about, when I was employed, my package, my healthcare, and the fact that my pension was this. So in a way, just to give me some security, we bought and sold properties. So we did things that are called, they didn't have all these kind of swanky names like flips and things like that. It was just kind of like, you bought it, you sold it, you made a profit. And my mum was also a corporate and an academic, so she was a university lecturer, and she bought and sold properties, and she became a landlord probably back in the 90s. So I kind of had a heads up of how to become a landlord back then. Fast forward pre-COVID, the work that I was doing didn't have the infrastructure to be online. And I just used that as an opportunity, because my husband was always working and construction was so thriving, and it didn't make sense that he didn't get furloughed. And because it didn't make sense that he didn't get furloughed, I started to say, let me look at your back office. Let me look how I can sophisticate this a little bit more and add that flow where everything talks to each other and everything makes sense on the front end as it does on the back end. And that's how I got involved in it 3 years ago.
You just said something. Pandemic. Well, the pandemic changed everything, didn't it? For a lot of people and a lot of industries, and it also brought opportunities with it. The one thing I just found really interesting that you just said is when you were talking about pensions. So we're recording this on the 19th of February, and it will go out in March.
Yeah.
But last week, I know around the 10th of February, there was an article about the pension gender gap, which was men, and I'm assuming they mean professional men, not builders, tilers, supermarket workers, retired with an average of about £200,000 pension, compared to women who retired with £68,000 private pension.
Wow.
So the fact that yours was flipped, I think, shows really clearly that it's not actually about gender. It's about professional roles and other factors.
Yeah. So I think I'll tell you what, that's so true actually. But I tell you what, I think my biggest thing has always been, because I was a property owner, I've always been a bit of a risk taker, because I think I'm a risk taker. My strengths are I was good with numbers. So I was good at mathematics, but I didn't like the mathematics that was taught in school. I was inquisitive about interest rates, mortgages. I used to ask all those wrong questions in the space of adults because that's what interests me. So if I ever went to the bank and my mum was at the building site or my dad was at the building site and they were actually probably changing their mortgage around, I wanted to understand it, and I used to read all of that. So that's always been my strength. So I think I worked out very quickly what I had to do to earn a certain amount to be able to have a mortgage and to be able to, if I didn't have a partner or somebody equally to pay, could I still sustain that commitment, because I've took that risk in the first place, and I'm the only friend at my age at 19 who's got their own place or who is driving. So I'd take a risk, but I'd also take a responsibility, and I think that is kind of that's my mantra. I always take a risk, but I take responsibility. So within construction, I don't actually have years worth of experience in managerial in construction, but then what I did do is I thought, well, I've got years worth of experience through Andrew and leadership here, and how I bridged it in the middle was like, what's the industry standard? What do I need to be able to say that I am confidently this? Because yes, there was a little bit of prejudice when I first got into the back door of saying, when I was going to the merchants to order materials, or when I was calling the workforce to say that this is their work schedule, they thought I was a secretary. They thought it was because I've got some money and I was fixing up my house, or I could be a property. Everybody, every networking event and everywhere I went, fronting as project manager initially, always assumed I was something else. So quickly, I had to get the qualifications and go on the training and learn to speak the lingo to be accepted as, oh, she does know what she's doing. Oh, she is in charge. But because the industry isn't corporate, I think it's took me a shorter time to climb up very quickly because it's been about relationships.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about the industrial sectors in the UK. Once you've demonstrated you know what you're doing, people just go, oh, all right then. It tends to be people who don't understand the practicalities. So they might be more corporate based. Now, I know you had a successful corporate career, so I don't mean you, but my favourite for that is I was at a networking event. It was fairly sort of white collar.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd got my name badge on, and somebody went, professional polishing services. Oh, are you a cleaner? And I was like,
wow.
No. I hadn't even thought about polishing, translating to cleaning.
That, yeah.
But you can understand where they're coming from.
Yes.
But it was like, no, why would I ever, no, why would I be a cleaner? It just didn't make sense with pharmaceutical, nuclear and architectural work that's the day-to-day job, and it was a massive disparity, but it's understandable because a lot of corporate people don't think in terms of industry.
No. And to be honest, I've had that again just the weekend. So I've met a new friend at my place of, I go to David Lloyd, it's like a leisure spa or whatever. So I've met a new friend there, and we've spoken to one another because she's a woman, I'm a woman. We're using the workspace after a workout. She wonders and assumes that I'm obviously a corporate. It's kind of, working from home, being the office gym. And then as soon as I said to her, I was in construction, and we carried on talking. Once she felt comfortable with me, she says, why construction? Like, as in, I wouldn't have thought, that's unusual. She said that because I was using, that was it. I was using a lot of software that she was using. So my project managing tool, my CRM system was very similar to hers. She couldn't understand it. And I said, well, that's exactly it. I said, this is what this industry needs to work. And I said, to be honest, all the larger infrastructures that you do know of, so your Balfour Beatties, your Mace, your Let Leases, they're all like this. You don't expect an SME to be like this, but this SME is saying this is the way to be, because it makes you, I'm here now, aren't I, with you? And that's how so I still get that. I even get that from women, even now.
It's I think there's the perception of SMEs, manufacturing, construction, engineering, and whereas the reality, particularly for SMEs, we have to be flexible, we have to be looking ahead, we have to be using every tool we can get our hands on to make things happen quicker and better, slicker and smoother. It's all about productivity. If you don't hit the productivity, you don't hit a profit. If you don't hit a profit, you're not going to be around for very long.
No, exactly. And you've got to be able to, I suppose, sometimes for us, we've always got to track back of a process. How did that happen? Who was it? When? What? And how? Now, the way that some other contractors work is a lot different. Don't get me wrong, it may work. They may take pictures of everything. They may have conversation and everything. But I can just pull up a report between this time and this time, and I'll see, and I can print it off, or I can pull it to one side and just scan through that week where there may be a discrepancy, or it's very productive, and see why. What was about? Oh yeah, we had this, we got that, X, Y, and Z. And there was definitely different trends that I can also see in regards to when certain materials went up, what work was increased and what work slowed down. So the wood went sky high, but plaster and all these other things were cheap. So we were doing a lot of different types of work. So that's why you need that intelligence. And I'm always learning, because like you said, it is a thin line that 1 minute you could be really, the formula's working, don't change it. Really, really keep repeating that process. And then you're like, hold on a minute, the profit's not the same. What's gone wrong here? So yeah, I think it's a very ever changing environment, but I think what's nice is if you've got the tools that we were talking about in place, you can quickly see what the problem is and obviously find an alternative. But what I love about property is, if you're in property and construction, there's always going to be something booming when something else dries up. And that's kind of why I've kept in the network, because it's kind of knowing what all angles, all aspects of this industry are doing, which will make a decision on, is construction going to be busy? Are people buying? Are they fixing up? Are they selling? Are they doing more residential? Is it commercial now? So last year, the biggest thing was permitted development. So a lot of commercial development, we may see retail is closing, but what property owners were doing and developers were doing was seeing that as an opportunity, making more residential of that building, keeping the shop floor as a shop floor, but the shop floor is now no longer, let's say, just a retail store, but it may be offering cosmetic dental surgery. It could be offering aesthetics. It could be a coffee shop, because that's the thing now. So it's been a journey. It's really interesting, definitely.
So as you're in year 3,
yeah,
when you started, which was just after COVID, I know you'd got your individual property business prior to that, but when you sort of decided to set up Wood Manor, what area did you focus on initially? Was it commercial? Was it residential?
Okay, so it was residential, because a lot more people were working from home. A lot more people were wanting to create different spaces at home, but the spaces that they wanted to create needed to be kind of serviceable. So people were having home offices, they were having home gyms, they wanted a media room because they weren't going out to the cinema anymore. So we targeted on, we're the best at doing media rooms. I worked a lot with interior designers, not even interior designers. I did a lot of research. How do you create a media room? What's required? Okay, it's carpentry, it's this and that. What else is it required? So designing, what the difference is, designing these spaces, you've got to be quick. You've got to come up with a design really quick, and you've got to get it out to market. That's what you are doing. So,
and things like the AV cables and the AV connectors, they change so quickly.
Mm-hmm. And the quality and things like that, because obviously certain people can rewire, or they can sustain all the the hard wires that's required, and some just want that look but they can't sustain that. So that's where our focus was, and it was spot on because people were doing that. And then when we came out of lockdown, we carried on doing like from the outside in. So people were converting their outside spaces because they'd gone back to work slightly, but because they spent so much time at home, they wanted like the home bar to be the home bar, or they were still wanting, they probably moved the office that was in the house to the garden. So we kind of started to do more stuff like that. And so it was really residential. But then what happened was, some of our work commercially, people would say, well, actually, because people have spent so much time at home, we want our offices to look different. We want them to have that homely feel. So could you make some of the welfare facilities that used to look clinical look like home from home? So last year we were doing that, and we were like, God, they kind of want like a mini media room. They want like a little coffee area, and it did really well for us because we already had the content to say we could do it because we'd done it for homes. And if you have a look at some of the what do we call them now? The serviced offices and some of the kind of WeWork came. So if you imagine WeWork, Colmore Row, a lot of those concepts, you kind of forget that you're actually in an office because it's there's different breakout spaces, isn't there?
I was in one the other week, and I can't remember the name of the brand. And I'd gone there for a meeting, and they've got, now I'm a middle-aged woman, and I'm allowed to have my, I don't understand why the kids like that moment.
Yeah, of course.
They were like old phone boxes, and they literally had a store, and then somebody pulled down like a desk from the wall, and they shut themselves in. And I was like, and they were all glass panel, but I was like, it's the size of a phone box.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it?
I was just like, okay, they're soundproof, so I suppose if you're having a meeting, going in there is better than sitting in an open area, even with headphones on or your AirPods in or something. But I was like, I don't want to sit in something that's smaller than a bathroom.
No, nor me. And I know what you mean, but there is, I think I went for a tour at Wolverhampton Homes, which they're kind of like a social housing outfit, but they have done quite well over lockdown. They worked with all their residents and tenants and things, and instead of losing money, they've made their most money to date in the last 3 years than ever before. So they've spent a lot of time in their, getting their office space right. And there were bits like you've just said then, which were just small little booths, like, kind of diner booths. And I said, well, what's that? And they were like, that's our innovation area. That's where you sit to get ideas. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, some of us used to kind of just get, a flip chart and just, what do you mean an innovation area? I have to create an innovation area on a building site some days because I haven't got the luxuries of that. But yeah, and another space which is different is, because we are doing content like TikToks and podcasts now, and just creating content for work, there needs to be the right space for that. So there is some industries now that have got this kind of like studio recording kind of area that looks quite pretty and cute, and it does, it's got a lounge, like so sofa, so it's got that kind of feel, and it's for all of that. Now that's all the new world, isn't it, I suppose?
And it is, and things are always going to change. It's changed from when I started in the 80s, and it's changed a lot. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And we can't look at, people 19, 20, 21 coming into industries now, or even just coming into the world of work and expecting them to do what we did, because everything's different. And, we need young people in all industrial sectors. If they're on TikTok, we need to be on TikTok.
It's so true. It does open your eyes. And I think that's why, for how we recruit, we try and, like you say, introduce females. We try and introduce the younger age group, but we try and mix the two, because so the oldest person that works for us is 70, 71, 72. It's the oldest person that works for us. However, the youngest person that's ever worked for us was 16. And sometimes we made sure that those two kind of individuals would have to work with one another, but have to work with one another without it being kind of, you're the oldest one, so you're leading this and you're the youngest one. We actually flipped it on its coin. So sometimes the younger person would be showing the older person, I'm going to record your before and afters, and this is how you can do it yourself. And then the older person would be like, well, I know you're using this fancy new laser pen, but do you still, if that was to break, could you still convert these numbers the old-fashioned way? And if you couldn't, let me show you how, in the quickest way how, because under pressure, if that laser pen breaks, you still need to know what this converts to. So we've done things like that, and we have, like, when you take people out, you can't just take people out for, like, I don't know, drinks after work anymore, because that's, some people are drinking, some people are not drinking. So we've done certain days or fundraisers where it's an activity and everybody has to kind of, muck in, and it's broke those barriers down, which may be there or may not be there. And sometimes, if you understand, obviously, with a younger person, they might be saying their road, they don't know what they're talking about. And an older person will be like, oh, we didn't have all this technology, we coped without it. But if you put them on like a, little bit of a, we've been to Ascot races, we've done just like activity days where we're going to find out about a new product in a new factory. But during that day, they've got different activities for us to do. But we've all had a great time and a great experience.
It works so much better when you do things like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And you're right. You don't want to put people in situations that they're not interested in being in.
No.
And I think, the sort of going for a drink it's great if that's what somebody wants to do. But a lot of people don't want to do that, or they've got to get home to the kids. And it's about trying not to impact on their family and life as well. Or, they might have to go and visit an elderly parent in a nursing home every evening. People have got a life outside work. And if they can't do what everybody else is doing, you don't want them to feel left out.
No, exactly.
It's all about the inclusion, isn't it? And keeping
inclusion is a big thing, and you've got to, I think you've just got to keep thinking, and you've got to keep educating yourself. So in regards to inclusion, we have to keep educating ourselves, because it's ever changing. So we do rely upon some of our competitors. We purposely make relationships with people who are a bigger outfit than us, and we will go to their kind of show and tell days and their activity days, or we'll sit on their webinars for that information, because there's always they've obviously stumbled across a situation or an obstacle or a barrier or something that needs a little bit more education or needs a process that didn't exist, because obviously there's a lot of policies, and being a small SME, we can just say, yes, we are now, we've now updated our policies, and we're now, enforcing our anti-slavery or modern slavery act. How are we? Are we really? Do we know what that looks like? Because when some of the guys who have come to work for us now on a permanent basis were working on site, they definitely said that there were certain hairy moments where they could have had colleagues from, Eastern Europe, Fiji, that could have been part of that act had that policy not been enforced in the site that they were at. And I could have some guys who say, oh, I've got a few guys who can do some work. They're not from here, mind you. And lo and behold, I could be entrusting a bona fide subcontract to be like, okay, you're the gang lead for these guys, not having any kind of a policy in place for me to do my due diligence, and find myself in that situation. So
scary, isn't it? That
it is scary.
Not only that you can be in breach of a really important legality, but also the moral side to it, the human cost. And as you say, we have to learn constantly. We have to educate ourselves constantly. And the fact that these things are being brought to the fore and saying, no, actually, that nice car wash you go to every Saturday morning has been raided, and they've all been, they always manage to miss the people in charge, don't they? They always get away with it.
They do.
The people who were victims there, I managed to get hold of them. And, I never thought about that 10 years ago.
No. I think it's like you say. I think what made me realise it was kind of the more of those outfits were popping up, and it was always the same type of outfit. So something disused would turn up. It'd be a car wash, and you do start thinking, why is every single one of them? Why do some of the people, maybe English isn't their first language? You can see how if you kind of have your window down and you haven't got your music up, you can hear how they're being spoken to. You can see how they're dressed. You'll see even between them, and so you start and that's our human obligation to kind of suss things out for when, as in, is this fair? Does this look right? Is it a coincidence, or is there something else going on? But you're right. It is like situations like that, but sometimes it can be innocent things. So some people may say that there's a lot of house extensions going on in a very affluent area, but then all the workforce are not from England and they might not be here legally. And so that's why I think my corporate head and my processes head has really benefited Wood Manor to kind of not accidentally be in situations like that. But also, if we feel that people are looking to kind of, just sometimes there's no work over here, is there, or there's nobody that wants to do that job, and you legally want to bring people over for opportunities, it's also our obligation to educate how the correct way of doing that. This is what you need to do. This is how you get a visa. This is what test you'll need to sit. And so some of the contacts that we have had over in the last few years in property, there's a lot of people that have HMOs, and they are doing it the proper way. They are getting proper workers who are wanting to have residents here at an affordable cost, while these residents seek proper work, get their visa properly, and get all carded and ticketed. So I'm all for opportunities in the right way, definitely.
No, I agree completely. And it's something that if we ignore a lot of the press screaming in the background, because that they change depending on whichever government of the time it is, on who the bad guy is. When I was a teenager and in my early 20s, the bad guy was single mothers. Now it's immigrants and trans people. And in 10 years' time, it'll be a different demographic. And it's all to detract from other things.
I agree.
There's always going to be someone who is going to take advantage of the situation. The majority, 99% of people don't. They want the opportunities, you say, and they want, to learn and to work. Final question.
Okay.
What we haven't really asked you any questions, have we? We've just sat and chatted, but
we've had a good chat. Yeah.
And no glass of wine in sight either.
No, you've done okay.
We have. So, final question: what's the best advice you've ever received?
This is going to get me. There's pockets of advice that I've picked up along the way that's probably stuck with me the most. So my one pocket of advice initially is probably been from my mother, who was a very, very resilient, flexible person. And her biggest thing was that we're never too old to learn, and we're never too old to kind of also achieve. So all through my life, I am very much like, okay, so what do I need to learn? And it's taking that step back and listening and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I'm being honest with you, everything that I've excelled in is everything I feared the most, everything I'm uncomfortable about being in. And when you master that and you succeed, wow, you know what I mean? So that's the only reason why I will public speak, because even public speaking was something that I never had to do. I never needed to do, never aspired to do. But then realised there was stuff that I knew that if I didn't say it, things weren't going to change, and the change had affected me, and I needed to change others, because my reason is I don't want others to have the obstacles that I've had or that other people have had. So if it just means me just saying how to get over it, I just need to say it.
Yeah.
And I think that would be my takeaway.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's been nice.
It has.
I want to do it the other way around, because I was coming home today from site, and I was saying to some of the staff, I said, I can't wait to go home. I was telling them a little bit about your journey, and I have lots of questions to ask you. So we're going to have to do this again, because
we'll do it the other way around.
Because I was just saying just very, very quickly, I was just saying to my colleagues that if people were to meet yourself now, how I met you the first time, amazing green power suit, in the finest bars in Colmore Row, eating great food amongst all this company, and people would just say, what do you do? What's your day-to-day look? And they spoke to you maybe 2 decades before that and 3 decades before that. It's all different environments, isn't it?
Yeah.
But people just see that, but they don't know the journey. So my interesting thing today would have been, if we get to do this again, it's talking through that journey, to be able to sit here now in those environments. But every now and again, we have to go back to the factory, don't we? We have to go back to just what we've always known 2 decades before, but none of them are more important or less valued. And that's what I wanted to talk about, because I just think that would be eye-opening for people to kind of...
That's why I'm nearly always in a black trouser suit, because they hide the oil and the dirt. I don't wear white. If I wear a white top, you can guarantee I end up underneath the machine
at some point of the day.
Yeah, I will be underneath. That's the problem. I'm fairly tiny, and I fit into gaps other people don't.
Good. Oh, I like that. Yeah,
thank you so much for joining, Charlene.
No, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me. Take care.